Thank you very much, Professor Lesnick. My job is to introduce the history and concept of disc replacement. I'm sure all of you know much about it. So it's a long story. It took a little while to achieve disc replacement, and most of it is in the past 30 years. The disc is a structure that you all know. The joint between the two vertebrae may be a healthy disc or degenerative disc, and it's to be kept in mind for the history and concept of the disc prosthesis that we replace a disc that is a joint between the two vertebrae that has a shape, some elastic properties, and also a height that is a property that needs to be replaced by the implants. So the degeneration gives you a progression of loss of thickness of the disc and loss of the properties of mobilities. Disc disease is accessible to medical treatment, local treatment, injections, and surgery with a long history of fusion and trying to achieve fusion. And the topic today is the non-fusion, which is the last techniques that appears about 30 years ago. That goes together with the innovation in terms of implants on the left and innovation in terms of surgical access to the lumbar spine or the cervical spine. First of all, I'm sure all of you have seen these pictures and the pioneer experience of the 60s with Dr. Verström. The goal at this time was to place a stainless ball between two vertebrae, and that was the very first disc replacement that is in between the disc injection and the actual disc replacement that we all know. It was interesting to me to place here this type of implant, showing that it's like a fashion. The good ideas may go through the time and come back. The nucleus of Dr. Ray, that is a silicone nucleus, came about 40 years after this first stainless steel ball with the same concept. So we'll see through the discussion today that the implants may come back with a new generation with the same idea. The first one was the Charité. We are here in the early 80s with the SB Charité, 3 generations of implants for the lumbar spine. And this is the very classical and pioneer prosthesis. Still in the 80s, the concept of ProDisc, which is a ball and socket device. The Maverick here was an implant that came about 15 years later with a ball and socket device, but here is the material has changed. It's only metal. The Moby Disc that you know, with the generation on the right, it's a picture, it's an X-ray, the one with the anchors to the vertebral bodies, and here the ESP from FH. It's another concept. So we see the progression of different concepts for the lumbar spine. The lumbar was the first to be studied and implanted, and here are on the same slide a bunch of prostheses that goes for cervical, and we see that they are all the miniaturization of the lumbar ones with almost exactly the same concept of a ball and socket device on the right, Prestige, or a 3 pieces implant, Mobi C, and on the left, on the right and bottom, the ESP. That is between the 90s and the current and today practice. So that's for the history, the overview of the implants. If we go to the concept, we have about 3 main concepts of implants. One with one-piece implant as a deformable cages, that's almost the ESP. two pieces implant with some bearing surface that may be ball and socket with a spherical shape or oval shape, and three pieces implants where there is a nucleus that is sliding between two end plates with different type of geometries and different type of biomechanics. So we can classify the concepts of prosthesis that we currently use in one piece, two pieces, or three pieces implants. We can also try to classify them, that's the same drawings, showing some type of implants that have one unique and fixed center of rotation, when the geometry on the left here is a ball and socket device and the center of rotation is fixed and unique, or some other device with the nucleus, the mobile nucleus, that allows some translation also, and the center of rotation might be limited to a restricted area, or be completely free and determined by the functional spinal unit around the prosthesis. We can also classify the same prosthesis in two groups, the one that have a binding effect, and this replacement is like a joint bounding the two vertebrae, or the one that are different pieces with a bearing surface and the possibility of decoaptation. We can also try to classify these implants based on their properties, the properties of being able to come back to the initial position in motion with the concept of elastic return. Basically, the one that have a bearing surface do not allow elastic return, contrary to the one with a one-piece implant. Finally, maybe the most achieved classification of disc replacement is based on the number of degrees of freedom for the ones that are not very familiar to this concept. In a 3D space, there are 6 coordinates to identify the position of an object, and here vertebrae in 3D space, there are 3 translation and 3 rotation possible. So we say that a mobile object has 6 degrees of freedom when we can control every translation and every rotation. So if we come back to the prosthesis, some of them allow 3 rotation, that's the one on the right with the ball and socket device, but no translation. The center of rotation is unique and fixed. In the middle, we have 5 degrees of freedom for the type of prosthesis, the concept with a mobile nucleus that allows translation in the plane of the disc. And some prostheses have the 6 degrees of rotation, the full amount of degrees of rotation, because some vertical translation is possible. In a table, it gives you a classification like this, and the prostheses that we have now on the market are 3 to 6 degrees of freedom. So, as a summary, all these 3 concepts here, with a mobile nucleus, with a ball and socket device, and with a deformable cage, are about a summary of all type of implant that we have seen over the 30 past years. We can classify a number of pieces, location of the center, binding effect or elastic return, or degrees of freedom to mimic the intact disc that we want to match. Thank you very much for attention.